Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
All right, we're here at the Canadian Grain Commission in Winnipeg, and we're joined by Blaine Timlick. Blaine, I'll let you describe what you look after at the CGC here.
Hi, we look after the grain sanitation program here, and that is entailed about insect infestation and weed seed program. And both of these organisms that exist, not being part of the grain, are factors that affect marketability of the product.
So right now, of course, harvest is underway and grain is going into the bin. It's all about keeping it in the condition, the quality that it is at this time?
Absolutely, Kelvin. The grain is in the absolute best condition it can be in when you put it in the bin for storage. And you want to maintain that for as long as you need to for marketing purposes. And so you have to think about how clean is your bin, how are you going to measure temperature, how are you going to monitor that grain if you're storing it for a longer period of time, and what are the things that you need to do to mitigate insect infestation.
So what are those steps?
Okay. Firstly, bin cleanliness is it's a straightforward thing and everybody goes yeah, but small residues in bins or residues of grain in plenums of aeration systems are easily resources for stored product bugs. And you put fresh grain in and those insects are in these residues, all of a sudden it's just a faster way that the grain gets infested. And by infested, really we mean that the insects crawl in there and they have the opportunity to feed, which is damaging the grain, and also reproducing, creating many more bugs.
So speaking of those bugs, what are the common ones that we should look for? Rusty grain beetle is one of them that I think there's some familiarity with.
Rusty grain beetle is our biggest insect of concern. The insects that we typically have problems with in grain are all beetles. So the rusty grain beetle being one, red flower beetle being another insect called lesser grain borer, and weevils. That covers about 95% of the insects that are problematic associated with stored grain.
Lesser grain borer, we're seeing some trends with that species?
I think depending on the year, that particular insect is one that we have not seen very much in the past, and we're doing a project and we're looking into the demographics of that insect in Canada, and we're finding it more and more. And the reason we're doing that is because this insect is a very damaging beetle, even compared to rusty grain beetle. The numbers can get very high in grain fairly quickly, and these insects evolved from tree feeders, and they just found the endosperm of wheat to be a lot more delicious, and as a result they chew through it. But because their jaws are designed to eat or originally eat cellulose from trees, they damage a lot more of the grain than they actually even consume, so it's sort of compounded.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much grain in Canada or Western Canada each year is lost to insect infestation?
Well, lost is a really tough one. Typically, we find 1 to 2.5% infestation. Now, that doesn't mean that grain has to be disposed of. It usually means that it's still marketable, it's still fine for milling, it just has to be fumigated or have other mitigative actions taken to get rid of the infestation. Mm-hmm. Bad years, and this year is maybe not a bad year, but it's a higher level of infestation, 4% of all cargoes. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that there's no bugs in the grain that we say we don't find any, but we have a whole litany of inspection and testing processes that we use to determine if we find insects in the grain. And the Canada Grain Act states that we have zero tolerance, and that means by finding one pest that can damage grain means that we have to implement control.
So this is something it's important, it's critical.
Very much so, yeah.
All right.
And the one thing about Canada is we don't have a huge problem like they do in countries like Argentina or Brazil or even in the southern United States, where insect damage or presence is kind of on the front part of everybody's mind, and they know that treatment programs have to be implemented. Here it's sort of every other year, every few years, and people forget about it, and that's one of my biggest issues as a stored product entomology person.
All right. Well, hopefully this will remind some people, I guess.
Yeah,
Thanks for
cleaning
your
and
time,
treating, and don't forget, you can always call the CGC or look at our website for identifying insects that you may find in your grain. Make sure that they are pests and not innocuous insects. Or you can call us directly and we can help you through the solution, or to find the solution that you may need.
All right. Thank you.